5 p.m., January 19th, 2022. It's time to call the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, I will do the roll call since it's going to be a short one. Mayor Barnett is present. Mrs. Jones, Lisa is absent, and Mr. Schweinhammer is here by phone call. So with that being said, can we all please stand for the pledge? Okay, again, thank everyone for being here. We'll start with announcements, presentations, and public comment. Chief Cochran, you have reservation here with the request approval to retire Officer Brian Goldfard's duty weapon and release it to him. Police Chief Kirby Cochran.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Typically what happens when an officer retires, we do provide them with their last duty weapon. I'm just asking for the board to approve it and to go on record with the serial number that we're going to release. We have already replaced that weapon for the next guy. But whenever you're ready, I can give that serial number.
Yeah, go ahead if you don't mind. Give the serial number so Jane can.
Yeah. It is a Glock 17 9mm. The serial number is B as in boy, G as in George, L as in Lincoln, M as in Mary, 575.
Okay, and Bob, this is something that we've done many times when officers retire. So do you have any questions for Chief Cochran?
Mayor, I have a question, Chief. Do we not normally get a fair market value on that weapon? Something so that it's reported?
No,
Jane, don't we in
not
your
that I'm-
office?
No,
I
not that I recall.
I mean, it's usually de minimis, but I thought there was, if so, if that is required, I would ask that you pass it subject to that if it is required. I'm going purely from memory, but I thought we had, not for the city's records, but for his tax
Yeah.
records as an employment benefit.
Okay.
And it's usually a minimal amount because it's a retired weapon. So that's the only reason I would ask it subject to that. And I will look into it, see if it's required.
Okay, you get that, Bob?
Yes, sir. Make a motion to approve the request, retire Officer Goldfard's duty weapon, releasing it to him, subject to finding out whether the value needs to be reported.
All right, thank you. And I will second that. So we have a motion and a second. I vote yes. Mr. Schweinhammer, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other announcements, presentations, or public comments that's not on the agenda?
The Franklin Chamber is hoping to be able to save the city on March 10th. I say hoping because we're just monitoring the situation, but we will hopefully be on March 10th.
Okay, and I think the last meeting we announced it was going to be February 10th, and we collaborated together and decided it's probably best to wait a month and see where we're headed with numbers and stuff.
And if we need to wait even more than that, I hate to say it, but we'll do that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Rosie. Is there anybody else? Hearing none, we will go to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the minutes of the January 4th, 2022 meeting and the approval of the claims presented.
I will second the motion. I vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There isn't any old business, so we will go into the new business. Item number 1, request for a projecting sign at 90 West Jefferson Street for Field to Fork. Proposed sign would project 40 inches over the public sidewalk, would be 35 inches diameter circle with solid mount in facade and 22 feet clearance from sidewalk grades. Senior. Hi, Alex.
Hi, good evening, Alex Getchell, Senior Planner for City of Franklin. Just before you tonight, because this sign would project out over the public right-of-way. Sign meets our standards, roughly 3 by 3 diameter circle. just because it's over the sidewalk. It's mounted, I confirmed 2 or 3 times, 22 feet above the sidewalk. It seems quite high, but that's what they said, they confirmed, so I don't think it'll be an issue, but.
Okay, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with the sign, but do they have any kind of a time frame on finishing the facade?
Roughly 3 by 3. I'm not familiar with any of the facade work on what timeline of that, no.
Okay, thank you. So did you hear it, Bob?
Yes, sir. I would make a motion to approve the request to allow a projecting sign at 90 West Jefferson Street that would project 40 inches above the public sidewalk and be approximately, 40 inches over the public sidewalk, 22-foot clearance from the sidewalk, and a roughly 35-inch diameter circle as presented.
Okay, I will second the motion. I will vote yes. Bob, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I know it sounds kind of funny, you know, we sit here and make the motions in the seconds, and then how do we vote? But it's what we have to do by statute. Hey, next item, request approval of change order number 2, final for the Artcraft Alley sanitary sewer improvements project, which reduces the current contract by $3,632.03. Brett Stiebenthal, Wessler.
I'd like to start by thanking the wastewater and the street departments for all their help in making this a successful project, from being out in the cold, helping with maintenance of traffic, doing site restoration, pavement restoration in the alley, and even coming back and getting some of the aggregate out of the sewer that got in there from the point repairs. So very much appreciated. The change order addresses the adjustment of bid versus final quantities. They did not use all of the excavation allowance, and the liner that they're getting paid for is about 9 feet shorter than what was bid. So request approval of that change order to reduce the final contract amount, or the current contract amount, by $3,632.03 to a final contract amount of $80,697.97.
Okay, thank you, Brent. I'm glad to get that project over with, so.
20 years in the making?
Yeah, so I don't have any other questions on that one.
They usually like the reduction ones, Brent, that's
Yeah.
good, that's good.
Any questions, Bob?
No, sir. I will make a motion to approve change order number 2, which is the final change, reducing the total amount by $3,632.03 as submitted.
And I will second the motion, and I will vote yes. Bob, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, request approval of task order number 13 for Wessler Engineering to provide construction phase service, construction administration, and observation for the Camelot subdivision sanitary sewer rehabilitation project in the amount not to exceed $74,700. Brent Siebenthal.
So I would like to first provide a project update. All of the cleaning and televising has been completed in preparation for the lining. 7 point repairs have been completed. They've come across an additional 3 or 4 point repairs, additional that may be, that will be required. There is a point repair allowance in there, so hopefully I'm not coming back for a change order, but we haven't gotten the pricing yet. And Miller tells us they're going to line 45% of the project sewers next week, so very ambitious schedule on their part. That's 18 segments. The fees for us would be to cover construction observation, construction administration. It's time and materials, and if Miller is going to get this done a lot sooner than we thought than the 11 weeks, so we may not use all of that budget, but be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I do not have any questions. Do you, Bob?
No, sir, and thank you, Brent, for keeping this project moving along. We've been working on this for almost a year. So with that, I will ask to approve, or make a motion to approve task order number 13 for the Wessler Engineering to provide construction phase services in the amount of $74,700.
And I will second the motion, and I will also vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, request approval to advertise for bids for the US 31 Interceptor Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Engineer's estimate, $1,710,000. Brent Siebenthal.
So this project is the evolution of the original cleaning and televising. This is the bid package. The project consists of, at least at this point, 3 known point repairs, the lining of 8,760 feet of 8-inch to 24-inch sanitary sewers, and it's got a $50,000 point repair allowance in there. Previously, the estimate I had provided for this project was $1.34 million. The most recent input we've gotten from a lining contractor on this is that the cost of the resin has gone up substantially over the past few weeks, and so that's why, that's the reason for the increase in the engineer's estimate. Hopefully, through the bid process, the bids will come in lower than that. But anyhow, be happy to answer any questions you may have about this project.
You know, Brent, we're seeing that, and you are too, everywhere with everything that we do, and it's the new world, I guess.
What concerns me is driving in, hearing about the $4 a gallon gas that's coming March, April, May, because these resin prices are tied right to that. So, fingers crossed, get some good bids in and move forward.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other comments or questions on that. Are you, Bob?
No, I don't have any questions, and again, I want to thank Westler for, this is a project, again, started last year, we got all the, television done and the cleaning, so this is the final step, and, with that, I'll make a motion to approve the, advertisement for the bids, and, I guess that's all we need to do, just to approve the advertising.
And I will second the motion, and I will vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes?
Okay, next item.
Hey, Brent, when are we projecting to get the bid packages out?
So we're going to advertise this Friday, and then the following Friday, and then bids are due on February the 7th, I want to say.
Okay.
Let me find my notes here. Yes, bid opening February 7th.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to review it ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate you looking at it. Mhm.
Okay, next item. Request approval of proposal for geotechnical engineering services for the new screenings building at wastewater treatment plant. Looks like it's Brent.
Okay. So this covers the completion of 2 soil borings and also the preparation of the geotechnical report. We normally do not subcontract this work out because our insurance provider will not cover us, will not cover the active soil borings, and so that's why we asked the community, the city, to enter into this contract with, directly with Patriot Engineering. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I would indicate Brent reached out to me, and Patriot Engineering, because of the amount, is going to sign the affidavit, but not, I mean, it's a $5,100 contract, and so gonna
Gary got that to me today. It's in
Great.
with it. Yes.
execute the affidavit of compliance with all applicable laws. So I'm satisfied with it.
Okay. Any questions, Bob?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Patriot Engineering and Environmental, and not to exceed $5,150 for the new screening building for the wastewater treatment plant as presented.
And I will second the motion and vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next item. Request the following performance bonds to be accepted for the Bluffs at Youngs Creek. Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
Good evening. Section 3 of the Bluffs at Youngs Creek is currently under development, and we do anticipate the secondary plat being provided and then brought before the board at a future meeting. But they did want to get the performance bonds accepted at this time. Each of the performance bonds starts with SU 117697. 3 is for street trees, landscaping, and street lights, $216,300. 4 is for storm sewer swales and under drains, $761,363.73. 5 is for earthwork and erosion control, $289,421.70. 6 is for sanitary sewers, $327,586.20. 7 is for streets, $848,343.60. Number 8 is for sidewalks, $316,478.40. And 9 is for survey monuments, street signs, $31,422.
It's silly because, but I know we have to read it in the record. I think 4 is for 76 cents.
76 cents?
Yes. I think you said 26 cents. You said 73 cents.
Oh, sorry, 76 cents.
Right.
It's a lot of numbers.
I'd hate to lose 3 cents.
Okay, we'll see how good you are, Bob. Did you pick up on all that? We want to hear all those numbers back.
You're not gonna hear the numbers back, and, I noticed we had to get her 3 cents worth in. And, I hope you don't mind making these motions, but trying to expedite things, I would move to approve the performance bonds for the Bluffs at Youngs Creek, Section 3, as read by Ms. Tennell, as presented.
And I will second that great motion, and I will also vote yes. And how do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, request approval and acceptance of public right-of-way for Earlywood Drive Patriot Defense Research Park. Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
Good evening. Patriot Defense Research Park is proposing to construct 2 buildings on the south side of Earlywood Drive, just east of the railroad tracks. Associated with that project is dedication of right-of-way of Earlywood Drive, and it's ready for the board's approval and acceptance.
Joanna, have you had any indication of when they might want to start construction?
As soon as they can.
Okay, good. Questions, Bob?
No, sir. I would again make a motion to approve and accept the public right-of-way for Earlywood Drive from the Patriot Defense Research Park as presented.
And I will second the motion and vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Request acceptance and execution of plat over easements related to West Wind at Cumberland, Section 1, PC 2021-48, Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
For the development of the first section of West Wind at Cumberland, Section 1, which is immediately west of Cumberland Trace on the north side of Westview Drive, there are some areas of off-site improvements for both drainage and utilities. So they have provided both the drainage easement and right-of-way and utility easement right-of-way, which are both plat over easements. So what that means is when the next sections come forward and those improvements are then extended or modified, if the easement is included in that section, the plat will supersede the actual easement, and it's ready for the board's consideration and action.
Okay, Bob, I have no questions.
I have no questions either, so again, I'll make a motion to accept and execute the plat over easements related to West Wind at Cumberland, Section 1 as presented.
And I will second that motion and vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, next item, request approval and acceptance of public right-of-way for Upper Shelbyville Road, Founder's Point Apartments. Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
Good evening. The future development of Founders Points Apartments, which is located on the south side of Upper Shelbyville Road, immediately west of the Webb and Needham schools and east of Hurricane Road, is for the development of apartments. Along Upper Shelbyville Road associated with this development is also dedication of right-of-way, and it's ready for the approval and acceptance of the Board of Works.
And is there any indication when they want to start?
As soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, Bob?
No, sir. I move to approve and accept the public right-of-way for Upper Shelbyville Road regarding the Founder's Point Apartment project as presented.
And I second the motion and vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, request approval of supplement number 1 to Yandy Street Design Contract, City Engineer Mark Richards.
Thank you, Mayor. I think everyone's aware of the need to re-let the Yandy Street project. The 5 bids that were accepted by NDOT back in November were all significantly above the engineer's estimate, so it was determined that we should back up and rebid the project, make some design changes, and seek some additional funding from the MPO. The re-letting doesn't come without some cost. There's some additional design fees for resubmitting the letting documents, redesigning some portions of the project, et cetera. We received, pardon me, a request for a supplement to the contract from GAI Consultants in the amount of $24,500. That increases the total amount of the contract to $333,500. This was approved by the Redevelopment Commission at its meeting yesterday for funding. So I'm bringing the contract supplement to you for consideration and approval. Scott Hornsby from GAI Consultants is in the room tonight, and if you would have any questions for him, he, I'm sure, would be more than happy to answer those. So.
And Bob, I do not have any questions for Scott. Do you?
No, I think it speaks for itself, and I would move to approve supplemental number 1 to the Yandy Street Design Contract with GAI Consultants in the amount of $24,500 as presented.
And if I could ask that the motion include that the mayor sign on the board's behalf, since the mayor's the only person here tonight.
Bob, were you able to hear that?
I know what he's trying to say, at least. Yes, I have no problem with amending my motion to include the mayor's sign on behalf of the entire board.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I will second your motion, and I will vote yes. How do you vote, Bob? Okay, thank you. Next item, well, Scott, so we just approved that. Now it's up to you to get some good bids, right? I mean, well, the pressure's on. This one counts for us. The rest of them, I don't care about. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, Scott, if you want to hang around, could I get you to sign the agreement? Thank you.
Okay, next item. Request permission to transfer the 2009 Ford F-350 truck with the identification numbers of IDX 0023-1FTWF31529A 50984 from the MVH to the cemetery. And Stephanie Shepherd's here. Do you have anything to add, Stephanie?
Nope, we would just like to transfer the vehicle.
Okay. All right. So any questions, Bob?
No, sir. I'll make a motion to approve the request to transfer the 2009 Ford F-350 truck from MVH to cemetery as presented.
Okay, and I will second that motion and vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item. Request approval of services agreement with Flock Safety Group Incorporated for traffic camera service, Police Chief Kirby Cochran.
This one I'm gonna ask for a little bit of guidance from Lynn on,
Sure.
since we've already talked about
If I might, Mayor and Bob, we've already talked about this agreement. This is for the cameras. We've actually talked about it at several meetings, and I reviewed the contract, revised the contract. Stephanie, I'm sorry, Sharon in the clerk treasurer's office could not find where there was a formal motion from the Board of Works to approve the execution of this contract. So we would simply ask that the Board of Works make a motion to ratify the chief's execution of the contract. These are the cameras, and Chief, we even talked about it at the last board, so it's been talked about on several of our Board of Works meetings, but Sharon couldn't find a formal motion in the, and rather, quite frankly, rather than go through every one of the minutes and the recordings for the last year, it was probably more expeditious just to bring it right here and have you ratify it, rather than spend our time listening to the minutes for the last year.
Okay, and Chief, with that being said, I know you had another success story with the flock cameras. Can you
Right.
just real quickly tell us that success story?
Yeah, what happened is we had, one of our cameras on US 31 picked up a stolen vehicle. It was occupied by 3 individuals, all out of Marion County. They were in the city for, obviously, no good reason. They're in a stolen vehicle, they fled, and ended up at Rural King and Greenwood. All 3 fled the scene and were apprehended a short time later. So I would just say, these cameras, and that's just one story. There's been stolen vehicles and areas around us recovered, but in this situation, these folks were here in the city with no business in the city in a stolen vehicle. So without the cameras, the likelihood of stopping that particular car is slim to none. So we're able to recover a stolen vehicle and actually make some arrests. So without the cameras, that wouldn't happen.
Well, good job, and I'm glad to see they are doing what we hoped they would do. So,
Right.
Right.
thank you.
Thank you.
So the formal motion would be to ratify the agreement with Flock Safety Group, Inc.
Yes, I just made that motion that Lynn just suggested that we, how we word that. So I just made that motion through Lynn. So we need a second, Bob.
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. So I vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, request approval of the 2022 Wellness Program Service Agreement. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes.
Thank you, sir. This has, Ms. Gray has looked over this contract. There were no changes from last year. It is the same amount of money. It's just a rubber copy of what we've done
Right.
last.
We simply changed the dates, and as Jane indicated, even the hourly rates they charge for the various tests that our employees may take remain the same from last year. So anything that remained the same from last year, I thought was probably a good thing.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I don't know. You hear that, Brent? The price remained the same.
I would request that the mayor sign that.
Okay, so Bob, I will make this motion here to approve the 2022 Wellness Program Service Agreement, and that the board will allow the mayor to sign on behalf of the board.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. I will vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next item, annual renew of the MOU with the Johnson County Emergency Management Agency. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes.
Do you want my help? Or Stephanie, jump in here if you would like to. You know that we have cooperative agreements with most of our local municipalities as well as the county. And Stephanie at Johnson County Emergency Management Agency is the coordinator of all of that. And essentially what would happen is if there is a emergency countywide, we identify equipment that we could provide to them in conjunction with our cooperative agreements. And these MOUs are what she gathers for each one of our municipalities that are here. And so that's what this is. It's the same as it has been in the past. There is some fill-in that needs to be done. I don't know if, have you filled it in on the one that's in there of the things that we have available, that in the hopefully unlikely event that there ever were to be a local disaster, that we could offer with regard to equipment?
Okay, so I would make a motion.
Mayor to sign.
Okay, thank you, Jane. I will make the motion to renew the MOU with the Johnson County Emergency Management Agency and ask the board to allow the mayor to sign on the board's behalf.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I vote yes. How do you vote, Bob?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Other business, it's update on the federal vaccine policy. City Attorney Lynn Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you and I have probably talked about it. I don't know if the department heads have been aware. As you know, at a national level, there was a lot of discussion that was occurring about whether or not the federal mandates with regard to requiring employers to have a mandatory vaccine policy or exemptions that were permitted for religious exceptions or medical exceptions was going to go into effect. There were two avenues of this. One was the federal mandate from essentially what is Medicare that requires hospitals, healthcare providers, and nursing homes to have all of their employees vaccinated. There was that mandate. If people did not follow that mandate, they would then lose Medicare funding. There was a second line of cases that ended up at the Supreme Court that said any employer over 100 employees would also have to have a vaccine mandate, and that could include an exemption for religious exemptions or medical exemptions. Otherwise, if you did not do that, you had to have consistent testing, probably on a weekly basis, policies in place. That went all the way to the Supreme Court. I listened to the argument, which was a week ago Friday, at the Supreme Court, and they did rule very quickly because it was going to affect essentially every governmental entity here as well in our community, as well as employers with over 100. The Supreme Court upheld the requirement for hospitals, nursing facilities, and physicians, because their theory was that is directly related to health. But they did strike down the mandate as it related to businesses. Without getting into the policy arguments, the basis was that OSHA was the one that was making the mandate, and OSHA's role, jurisdiction, if you will, is for employee safety, which is more limited to work conditions, and that the virus is actually a public health condition. So OSHA making such a rule was outside their jurisdiction. So with that, the federal government, or the Supreme Court, has spoken, and so there is no requirement to put in place a vaccine policy. It was rife with lots of problems. No one could tell us what religious exemptions were. Nobody could tell, I mean, do I have to check and see if you tithe at a church, or do you get a note from your pastor or anything? So there were all kinds of issues that just made it really unworkable for most employers to be able to impose. I would say anecdotally that the state legislature is also, it's working its way through the state legislature, a statute that says employers cannot mandate a policy. So they were going to probably conflict anyway. So with that, I don't think that any formal action is required by the city, but I wanted you to be aware of it as department heads in case you were asked, and certainly as the Board of Works members in case you were ever asked about why don't we have a federal vaccine policy. It's because it's beyond our jurisdiction. That's my update.
Okay, thank you for the update. Gets us to department reports, and we'll start with you, Chip.
I don't have anything tonight.
Nothing? Okay. Chief? Chief?
Nothing, sir.
Sherry?
I don't either, thanks.
Rick?
Nothing, sir.
Krista?
I don't think so.
Stephanie?
No.
Wow, this is going pretty quick. Mark?
Oh, I'm gonna jump in.
Okay, I knew, that's why I said that.
Opening bids tomorrow for two projects. One's the Graham Commerce Roundabout, and the other's Jim Black Road. That happens at 11 o'clock in this room. And then I also submitted application for community crossings for the call that's open right now at NDOT. The total estimated cost is about 2.5 million, just under 2.5 million. So if we're successful, we'll get $1 million in funding.
Okay, thank you. You always seem to do a great job with that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sally?
Yeah, I want to say something, just because nobody else did. We've been working on the rehabilitation of the overflow basin at the wastewater plant, and the aerators are ready to set. That is due next Wednesday. However, if it's frozen, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. So, but we're there.
Okay,
So
thank you.
hopefully we'll get those aerators set in and get back in business.
Ms. Rhodes?
I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen, you should look, if you towards the amphitheater, because they put some new lights out, and it's just, looks pretty cool. Looks really neat.
I've been trying to get those turned off all day long today.
Have you?
Literally.
I saw this morning.
Okay. So, Bob, do you have anything to say?
No, sir?
Joanna has something?
Yes, Joanna. You about let me forget that.
I wasn't letting you forget that.
Okay, thank you.
We received a call from Chris Dowdy, who is the developer of, one of the developers of the Links at Franklin, which is the apartment complex just east of the fire station off of Thornburg. The city of Franklin owns 2 lots just immediately east of the fire station, and he was requesting consideration to allow them to put their construction trailer there and base their construction operations. I told him that that would be something that would need to come before the Board of Works, and I would anticipate some indemnification requirements and potentially insurance requirements, but did want to bring that before you.
Okay, and Joanna and I are thinking alike, because I had that conversation and told him the very same thing and said that we would bring it to the Board of Works and have Ms. Gray give us some guidance on what we should do, because I do feel like it's okay to put his trailer there. Talking with Matt, we just want to make sure when they're done that they make sure the site is put back to the way it is today. I know when Milestone was there, they left. We had to spend a little bit of money fixing that up. Matt did through his department. So we just want to make sure that when they're done and satisfy Matt, who's in charge of that
those 2
property
lots,
right
yes.
there.
They're unimproved lots, correct?
They are vacant, unimproved lots.
And are there any-
separate from the fire station site.
Are there any sewers or any others? Okay. I believe, Mayor, if you recall, when we were doing some work over at McDonald's and those hotels over there, there was a park that was getting that. So there's an agreement out there that I drafted at one point, talks about indemnification. So we can figure it out if it's your desire to do it, that requires them to indemnify us and to restore it to its, so a similar agreement that we did that when McDonald's was doing some work on that parking. Remember the trucks
Yes,
and that
I
kind of stuff? So we've done something similar in the past.
So do we need to make a motion to?
Yeah, authorize you subject to executing a document that indemnifies and has insurance requirements.
Okay, I
Or
would,
legal review would be fine as well. I'll do it. Joanne and I will do it.
okay, I will make the motion that we allow the construction trailer to be on our property as long as Ms. Gray and Joanna Tennell and Matt Culp is satisfied with the wording. Anything else, Bob?
No, sir, I'll second your motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I vote yes. Bob, how do you vote?
Yes?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I want Ms. Gray to talk last, but I do have one thing I
Oh,
want.
I don't have anything else. I'm
You
done
don't have
talking.
anything
I'm
else?
done
Okay.
talking.
I do have one thing I want to bring up.
Every
just-
time I talk, I get more work, so I'm done.
Well, I just want to make people aware of a situation that I am really not very happy with. And that situation is, you know, out on the east side, our redevelopment commission has spent lots of money to make the east side something special. And the owners of the property, if you've noticed, has put stakes out, and there's I think it's Caliber Body Shop or something is looking to go there. I think legally, what I'm being told, they probably can. However, I want people to know, you know, I get accused of bringing everything to the city. This is one project I am not in favor of. I would recommend that people reach out to the owners of the property and talk about what is the best use for that property and for the city. However, they have every right to sell that property to whoever they want to sell it to, and it can go there. It's in the zoning ordinance. So I just want to make people aware here what could be happening. And if you know what a body shop looks like, it's a big body shop. It's not a mom and pop body shop. There's like it's gonna look like a junkyard, and it's gonna be right there by McDonald's. I'm not in favor of it. I just wanted to get that out there. So, that's all I got to say. Bob, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Mine was in February.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6 PM, January 19th, 2022. It's time to call the city council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Here.
Mr. Buchan? Mr. Jones? Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Nally?
Here.
Mr. Prime?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, prayer and pledge, please.
Invite you to join me. Our Father, we come before you this evening, grateful and thankful for another opportunity this evening to be in this hall for the discussion of matters and decisions over matters that affect this city. I pray that you'd be with those of our elected leaders and help them with wisdom and discernment for the decisions they make. I just want to thank you for every department, every employee for of this city and the great work that they do. And thank you for all of the great many events and things that go on here that we get to look forward to as we enter into this new year. I just pray you continue to be with our first responders, especially those over at the hospital with increased illnesses. Just continue to bring our city back to a place of health and wellness. Thank you for everything that's going to take place this evening. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
All right.
Mr. Buchan appears to be a little shorter tonight
Chair's shrinking. He's got
than I
the short
recall.
chair.
I thought he was a little bigger.
All right. So thank you for attending and under announcements, presentations, and public comment. Mr. Taylor, can you introduce our guest?
This is my daughter Callie. She's the future mayor's committee, I think. Is that?
Mayor's Council.
Mayor's council. You want to say anything?
Thank you. Hey, I didn't want to embarrass you, but I kind of did. But thank you for coming tonight, okay? All right, so we'll move on to, is there any other announcements, presentations, or public comment?
I'd like to announce that the State of the City address, I think I previously announced that it was February 10th. We're going to bump that down the road a bit to March 10th, hopefully. We're monitoring COVID and want to make sure that we're as safe as we can be. Hopefully March 10th.
Okay, and thank you, Rosie. And just to clarify, one reason that decision was made, there's usually right at 300 people at this event, and it's one of the favorite events for me, and I think the chamber, so I think that was a wise decision, and I appreciate it, so thank you. Any other announcements, presentations, or public comment? Okay, hearing none, we will go into the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Would
Hearing
read-
none.
Would read old business by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second to read old business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 1, Common Council Ordinance number 21-28, revised approving trash collections, curbside recycling and collection of fees. City Attorney Lynn Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you'll recall, in December, the last meeting in December, you instructed me to bring forward an ordinance regarding trash collection. That ordinance was brought before you, and a public hearing was held at our first meeting in January. After the close of the public hearing, there were numerous council comments, and there was further instruction by council members to consider bringing back an amended ordinance that might have different amounts per year. I would refresh your recollection as the city has signed a 5-year contract with Rays, so the revised ordinance you have in front of you, specifically Article 5, Roman numeral 5, Article 5, sets forth fees for this year from April 1st through December 31st of 2022. Then it has 2023 fees being for a year, 2024 fees being for a year, 2025 fees being for a year, and then beginning January of 2026, fees continuing until a further ordinance is adopted or is amended in some way. I tried to tailor it to the 5-year contract we have with Rays. With that, I think the requests were made of our financial planner, Mr. Peters, to come back with various scenarios based upon how much that would mean to the city versus passing it on to our, I don't use, and I'm careful to use, it's not the taxpayers, it is the trash users, because taxpayers are what fund the general fund. This is for users of the actual service. So with that, I would defer to you, Mayor, or to Mr. Peters to give you the information you requested.
So I think, Jeff, it's probably time for you to get up and answer a few questions from the council. Thank you. Thank you and Calvin both for coming again tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all. Do you want me to take questions regarding the document that I sent out? I tried to summarize our various scenarios that we talked about the last time into a one-page breakdown of what it would look like for 2022 and then what it would look like in future years as the draw in the budget. I can either walk through those or take questions, whatever you'd prefer.
We don't have a public hearing again, but we have many of the same people back, so if, with council's indulgence, it might be nice to walk through those, if you could, so that they'll get a chance to at least see it, even though we don't have a public hearing on it. Is that acceptable, sir?
If we could bring that up on the
I was
screen.
actually going to suggest that.
Okay, thank you. Tara, are you capable of bringing that up on the screen or not? I don't remember. No, it's, I did not attach it. Mr. Peters sent it.
We have seconds. And first.
We have motions and seconds.
And bad dad jokes.
Jeff, you may want to just talk, maybe just say,
What you did.
describe scenario one, maybe, like what do nothing, what that entails.
Yes, I'll start there and we'll see if it comes up. Obviously, one thing is to do nothing, and by do nothing, that is in regards to recovering any of the costs from the users of the service. If you were to do that, you would continue to pay all the trash service from the general fund like you do today. In order to do that, you would need to do an additional appropriation, which again, you routinely do across the course of the year, but the budget that you have in '22 approved is insufficient to meet this contract. So you would need to additionally appropriate about $585,000 from the general fund to finish out that contract. The operating revenue, as we talked about before, you have, as a fiscal body, already passed a '22 budget. Your '22 budget, the revenue exceeds your anticipated expenditures by about $625,000, and that's kind of in line with what you've done in past years. That is a prudent thing for a fiscal body to do, and one of the things I laid out on here was to look at the operating budgets for general, motor vehicle, highway, and park and rec, which is what I would classify as your primary operating funds, is about $22.5 million for this year. The revenue excess that you have is only about $625,000, or about 2.78%. Again, that is a good policy. You have most of your costs, you know what they are. You've got good fiscal officer staff that can report numbers to you, so you're going to be able to stay within that budget. And this gives you the flexibility that if you have revenue shortfalls or you have some unexpected operating expenditures, you can make up that difference with the overage that you've scheduled for '22. However, if you do nothing in that scenario number one, you will consume $585,000 of that $626. So then you're only down to about a $40,000 operating surplus on that budget, which again at $22.5 million, I don't think that would be the path that you would want to go on. In future budgets, the drag would be about $1.7 million a year, which is the amount of your annual contract fee. For scenario number 2, we looked at the $10 being paid by the users, and then $1.45 per year for the next 5 years to fully recover the cost during this contract period of the next 5 years. If we pay the first 4 months of the general fund and then collect $10 per month after that, in '22, that would be about $648,000 that would be recovered from the trash users. The '22 operating revenue surplus would grow to about $689,000. Again, that would be an amount that I would be comfortable with as an overage for '22, in that we've just started '22. We don't know what's going to happen as far as inflation, as far as revenue fluctuations. The drag on future year budgets would be approximately $561,000 in '23, $420,000 in '24, $279,000 in '25, and $138,000 in '26. Plus any new homes that you're going to add over that time period. Remember, you are contracting for trash service per home that you are providing the service to. So as you continue to grow, you know you have subdivisions in development now. You probably have more that are going to come on board in the next 5-year period. So that amount is going to continue to go up. If you recover all the costs or part of the costs, let's start with all the costs. If you recover all the costs from the users of that service, then you don't have to worry about that exposure of if you recoup part of it or none of it. Because today that liability for '22 is $1.7 million for your contract. In future years, it might be 1.8, it might be 1.9, it might be 2.1, depending on how fast you grow. And, you know, you are pushing forward, trying to grow the community of Franklin. For scenario 3, we looked at, one of the options was $10 plus $722 in year 2. Again, if you pay the first 4 months out of the general fund and then collect $10 a month for the remainder of '22, that equates to about $648,000 in cost recovery in '22. Again, the surplus would grow to about $689,000 for the year, which is comfortable, and you would have no future drag or no drag on future years' budgets, as your $722 increase in 2023 would fully recover and recoup all the costs for 2023 and forward. Scenario 4 was $12 plus $522 in year 2. Paying the first 4 months out of the general fund and then recouping $12 a month for the remainder would get you about $778,000. Again, I think that's a comfortable operating balance. And then in year 2, you would have $5.22 put on the recovery rate. The drag on future budgets would be nothing, as that $522 plus the $12 you imposed in '21 or in 2022 would fully recover all of your trash costs beginning in '23. Scenario 5 was only pass the 2022 increase on to the users. If we paid the first 4 months out of the general fund and then collect the cost increased only, which is the $17.22 per user, less the $9.16 that you're currently paying, then the city would need to do an additional appropriation from the general fund of about $36,000. The operating revenue surplus would shrink to about $563,000. And then the drag on budgets after 22 would be about $890,000 plus, again, as we talked about, any new homes that you add in that time period. Because under that scenario, you're only recouping part of the cost of service. So that part that you are continuing to subsidize would continue to grow as you add houses. Scenario 6 was a break even. If we pay the first 4 months from the general fund and collect the cost increase, it would be $9.03 per month for users to maintain that original estimated operating surplus of $626,000 that you as a fiscal body have approved for the 22 budget. The drag on the future year budgets would be whatever you decide to do in year 2. When I wrote that one down with the break even, I didn't think to ask the backup question of what do we do in year 2. But again, I think from the above 5 scenarios, that'll give you an idea of what it would look like if you continue to subsidize in year 2 and forward, or if you go ahead and recover the rest of the cost. Again, in these examples, my recommendation to you is to recover the cost fully, again, because this is a good example of user services just like water and sewer. So we don't subsidize water, we don't subsidize sewer, we really shouldn't subsidize trash going forward. However, you have the right as the fiscal body to do that. If you do that, I would say in future years, you're going to be weighing against, do we continue to subsidize trash service, or do we provide a different level or program in public safety, parks and rec, or street projects? Again, that is your right as the fiscal body to make those decisions, but from a purely financial perspective, it would be better to recover these costs and then allocate year to year your other resources toward those operating expenses of public safety, park, and street department. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Peters, I was asked this question, obviously, my opinion is of no importance, but someone did ask me this question. The Board of Works frequently approves application for grants where we'll go out and get $1 million from our cross, but we have to match a certain percentage. The funds that we save and we put over, a lot of time, is that not the source of where those funds are? So in other words, we can get $1 million for a grant, but we have to have the money set aside for us to be able to match it in order to get that money back here. Is that accurate?
Some of that, I think, is built in and programmed from budget to budget, but yes, it would pull from year to year. And if you had an opportunity to take advantage of a nice economic development grant situation, having the general fund cash balance as it has been in the past and continuing to do that forward gives you that flexibility to go appropriate that grant match money and seize those opportunities. And that's another thing that you might be limited on going forward if you continue to subsidize trash.
Any questions for? Comments, questions?
You know, Mayor, you spoke last time about what your thoughts are on this. With all this information that's been presented to us, curious if your thoughts are the same, or if, you know, you've kind of changed on that based upon this information.
Okay, well, thank you, Josh. Quite honestly, it has changed a little bit, and the reason it's changed is because listening to Jeff and talking to the community, and for an example, we're watching our legislators right now is talking about doing away with personal property tax for businesses. That is going to take that's going to take $1 million away from the city of Franklin if they do that. And I know that was part of their discussion today. I didn't hear where it went, but I know they're talking about that. So I know that's playing into things. Inflation is playing into things. We've seen it with bids that we've bid. Well, our own trash bid was higher than what we thought it was going to be, and it's because of inflation. And I'm just pretty concerned about going down the road. How do we make up that $1 million that the legislators are trying to take away for quite frankly, for big business, not small business, but that's what's being talked about. So it's tough. I know we all up here, out there, we all love our community. We don't want to spend any more money than anybody else. That's what makes the world go round, is trying to save. But I think the right thing for me is as the mayor, I would have to say I need to take Jeff's advice. That's my opinion, but I'm also respect the council's wishes and want to work with the council as well. So it's hard on all of us, but that's where I'm at. You asked and I said it, so.
Well, and Mayor, I have to echo your sentiments. I think based upon what Mr. Peters has given us and had the time that I've had to think about it, I mean, no one wants to pay more. That's all there is to it, you know, on their utilities, et cetera. But at the same time, when you look at the unpredictability of the future and where it might leave the city, I mean, that's our responsibility as the fiscal body. So I would, like I said, echo your sentiments on, I think that the full amount should be passed on. Whether it's the popular opinion or not, I think that's where we have to go.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I've talked to many people about this, to get their thoughts, you know, on how they feel about it. And pretty much everybody I've talked to has expressed that, you know, they would rather pay the full amount, than maybe in later years have to, you know, decide on what services we might have to cut back on or anything like that.
Say, I would just echo both of those statements, and also just, you know, we need to do it right now versus over time, because we don't know with more houses coming in, with, you know, roads and streets and projects like that, we don't know where those numbers are going to lie, and we've seen that they've gone up. Just the Andy Street project came in, what, $2 million over what the estimates were, so I think we have to be fiscally responsible and go ahead and do it now. It's not what we want to do and, you know, paying the extra money, but I think it's what we have to do to keep us responsible. And then, you know, I know more community crossings grants are coming up. We need to have that money in our budget to, you know, match those things. If police or fire wants a matching grant, I'd rather have money so they can get things in, you know, for their departments. If we don't have that money sitting in there, we can't do those things.
I totally agree too.
And I, you know, I want to, just since you brought up, and I brought it up too, about the overages or bid prices coming back higher than normal. We as a responsible body, we have also turned those bids down. I mean, just because, and I'm kind of getting off a little bit, but I want everybody to know, like Yandy Street, it come in way over budget, so we rejected all of them and rebid the project. So I want you to know, we're trying to do the right things as well with the money we have. We did have to go back. We did get another grant from MPO, gave us $540,000 more, I believe it was, to help with that bid overage. So there's a lot to trying to run the budget, as you all know, and I think it's the responsible thing to do, so.
Jeff, you're pretty attuned to the legislative services. From what I'm hearing from the legal side of it, they think there's a big push to do away with personal property tax. Are you hearing that same, which will have a significant impact to us?
There is, and it'll be huge, and a big part of it is gonna be, what will the state replace? And what will they not? And, you know, just like the example that the mayor said, you would lose $1 million in your general fund budgets if we remove personal property. You would still have the same maximum levy that you've always had, and if the state looks at that and says, well, you have the ability to levy all those taxes, and you will levy them on your people with a much higher rate. What happens in that situation, though, and the property tax dollars that you actually net collect are gonna go down $1 million, because a whole bunch more people now are gonna qualify for the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps.
Right.
You know, will they make that and say, hey, we made you whole because we didn't take any of your property tax dollars away? Your tax cap issue is your issue.
So they get to
And-
lower taxes and try to force us to raise them.
Well, and that's what they did before.
Yeah.
You know, they gave those tax cap safeguards for the taxpayers. And all the loss fell back to you as locals. And their answer was not to go back and fix that. It was to push down to the county level and say, okay, now you guys, we're gonna give you a whole bunch more income taxability to fix that problem. But you're gonna vote for it. You're gonna raise the tax on your people to fix it. We're not fixing it. And it's, yeah, fears like that I could see. You know, it may be that same scenario, and they might, again, push away from property tax and on to income tax and expect the locals to fix it and make up the difference. And, you know, as we all remember, the first time they implemented tax caps, you lost a lot of money in the process of trying to figure out how we were gonna get back to a plateau and an operating budget that was balanced.
Quite honestly, I think the trash, what we're talking about now, we've survived all these years. The tax caps, this is what's causing this issue right here. That is my opinion. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but all these years, we've been able to manage this, and we finally got to a point with inflation that we can't do that any longer.
I think that's the case today, yeah.
Mayor, we do know that we're looking at about 1,200 new homes in the next 5 years. That's pretty much scheduled. I say scheduled, we're talking about subdivisions that have already been approved. And this is an estimate, but a very, I think, a good estimate of over the next 5 years. So you're talking a $22,000 increase approximately. And just help me run some numbers real quick, but, you know, that's a $22,000 hit right there that's not really built in to this because they are new homes, unless we do something. So it's not sustainable. This $1.8 million hit is not sustainable. So do we do a little bit at a time? But I hate to every year see your bill go up. I personally I don't like it, you know. Every year you get a bill and it is, oh man, they're raising my bill. Next year, oh, they're raising my bill. You know, next year, so for 5 straight years, you know, raise a bill, that's kind of tough. I think the people get a little sick of that. I know I do. So I don't know what the body thinks. I think I've heard predominantly what everybody thinks so far moving forward. Not everybody spoke, but, or maybe they have. The body spoke, but, yeah, it's not sustainable, and we've got to move on something, so, here we are. It's unfortunate.
So I think where
So
we're at, go ahead.
Can we, what's the right, just to make a motion as to, we want to do it?
Correct. We'll go back to our original one that I drafted.
Yep.
And we'll just, now, I do recommend that you not do it until April, which all of these scenarios talk about that, to give folks time to get ready. But then just on a yearly basis. And then what we would then do is whatever you determine the amount to be, then we will publish it in the newspaper. And it'll go into effect in April with the April billing at that point in time.
I think the public needs to be aware also that at the end of this contract in 5 years, I think you're gonna see another increase. I think that's gonna happen. I mean, just what Greenwood's paying or other communities our size in the state of Indiana, a gentleman with Rays could also tell us those figures, you know, cities the size of Franklin, what they pay a month for trash pickup. So in this 1722, I think is a low number compared to communities our size in the state. So, and specifically with the heavy trash pickup, which is a significant increase to the cost of this, is the heavy trash pickup. Leaf and limb is something that we do on a we've got a lot of trees in the city and a lot of limbs and a lot of leaves. And our guys and gals are out there working hard to pick all those things up. So, and we're not charging our constituents that fee. There is no cost. It's covered by the city.
But with that, you can fix it for 5 years. We know that.
Right.
We have locked in a 5-year
I get
rate.
that.
We have at least that.
I was saying after the 5
Yeah,
years.
you're right. You're right.
And who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but
Make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move ahead with the 1722 starting April 1st, right, Lynn? Is that the right
Correct.
date? April 1st, and imposing the whole 1722 at that time.
And the way the ordinance would then read would be beginning April 1st, for the services available in connection with any contract for trash collection and recycling to city users, a fee of $17.22 per month shall be charged to each residential user of the service or owner of property to which the service is available as defined herein, regardless of usage, beginning April 1st, 2022, and continuing until amended for the services available in connection with any contract for trash collection and recycling, period.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Mr. Prine. Jane, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Austin,
Aye.
Ms. McGinnis,
Aye.
Ms. Nally,
Aye.
Mr. Prine,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I know this has been a rough decision. I do believe it's the right decision. We will work with residents on placement. Calvin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you told me we're gonna work with the residents on helping with the placement of the containers if need be, and you've done this several times, and the biggest complaint that I've heard is people's a little nervous about the arms and going this way, but we've made that decision. We're gonna go that way, and we're looking for your guidance and your help to make sure it's a smooth transition.
We'll be there.
Thank you.
Well, education, Mayor.
Ma-
I think we got to educate our public.
Yeah. Calvin, when
There's
would,
a flyer going out.
when would the, I guess when would the cans become available and that's all start?
We're looking right now, deployment last half of March, 1st of April, same time. That was part of the discussion about I think that helps with the fee thing as well.
And there will be a flyer going out, Sherry, with the next bill?
First one will go out in February, and then we'll do a second follow-up in the March bill.
Yeah. And Madam Clerk Treasurer, do you happen to have a copy of the first ordinance that was introduced? Would you be kind enough to circulate that to council members tonight so that I can get that running in the Daily Journal ASAP? Okay. Not my amended one, because it's gonna change the page number, so the signature line from the very first one. Because that's what we went back to after this one.
What do you need this?
I'll take a look at it. Thank you. We can, that's all right, we can work this out. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Calvin.
Calvin, thank you.
Okay, that gets us to new business.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to read new business by title only. Who made that second? Jane wasn't.
Josh.
Josh made the second. All those in favor, of reading new business by title only?
Aye.
Okay, item number 1, Common Council Resolution number 22-01, a resolution denying tax abatement for Overton Industries Tube Forming Systems Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, good evening. I do have before you Resolution 2022-01. Overton Industries, also known as Tube Forming Systems, presented a request to the Economic Development Commission last week for a 5-year personal property tax abatement on a new piece of equipment. The investment was $247,068 with the 5% economic development fee. They would be adding 1 new employee at $23.50 an hour. This property is already in an ERA designation, so that is not something we have to worry about. After careful review, the commission felt that the totality of the investment was not sufficient to justify the abatement and did not recommend approval. I have with me tonight, I have actually 2 resolutions. I have one that is recommending approval and one that is not denying, excuse me. So that is kind of the decision before you. Mr. Scott Bowie is here from Overton Industries. I'd like to ask him to come up and just give you a short synopsis so that you have the full information on what this equipment is. So, Scott.
Dana, while Scott's coming up,
Yes.
we give a recommendation from the staff,
Yes.
the mayor's office, and our recommendation at that time was,
Was a 3-year. So the recommendation from the staff was to reduce this to a 3-year tax abatement. There would be basically a $2,000 difference in savings to the company. For a 3-year, they would have a $6,000 savings plus or minus, and a 5-year would have been an $8,000 difference, or different savings. So, Mr. Bowie?
Thank you. Thank you to the council for letting me up here and speak a little bit tonight. I guess the Overtons, we've been here since the early 90s when we built that facility out here, so we've been part of this community for about 30 years now. Obviously, over the years, we've initially built out there in the 90s, and then in 2005, I think we expanded, and then in 2019, we expanded again, so we're up to about 30,000 square feet. You know, in about 40 employees right now. So this year, we actually have 3 pieces of equipment that are in this abatement that kind of go together. So for us, it's a $247,000 investment. We did present that to the EDC. We were thinking that, okay, 5 years is what we asked for. Looked like 3 years was what was going to be approved, and that was certainly fine with us. And then kind of disappointed to hear that we didn't get any abatement on the equipment. And I think from our standpoint, we just want to say, you know, I kind of caution as to what message that sends to small business that are coming into town and making investments into the community. You know, we have high dollar positions. People have careers out there, not just jobs that are come and go. We pay in excess of $80,000, $100,000 for some of the positions we have, whether it's an engineer, a programmer, a precision machinist. We've got people been with us 30-plus years. So I know it's not an Amazon warehouse and that kind of investment in terms of millions of dollars, but we have put millions of dollars in this community. And we felt very strongly that, you know, the 3-year abatement would go through, and we were comfortable with that. So I just kind of question, you know, where we're going. Our $247,000 investment's a pretty significant investment for a company our size. And so I just ask that you guys consider that and see if we can, you know, make something that works for everybody here. So, and I can obviously answer any questions about the business or the equipment that we're bringing in, what it does, or, you know, I will say these pieces of equipment that we bring in, they probably have a lifespan of 10 years or in excess of that. So even though we get a 3-year abatement, you know, the other side of that is we pay taxes on that for 7 years or longer. So, you know, I think that's a pretty good win-win on both sides there.
Sir, don't you write those off at into 3 years approximately, though?
Not necessarily on terms of taxes that we're assessed on, no. I mean, we might take depreciation, we may take full depreciation a year depending on the Section 179 deduction or whatever. So.
Normally, I've seen that in the past, about 3 to 5 years, according to what kind of machine it is, but traditionally that's written off at the end of 3 years or so.
Yeah, I think some of ours are 5, 7, 10, depending on how big.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Sean, can you tell us a little bit about the EDC meeting and how that went?
I was not there.
Okay.
I missed the meeting. I do have the notes from the meeting and have read through the notes from the meeting. One of the biggest things they talked about was just bringing in one person as far as job expansion was one person. Another thing, you know, the notes talked about was, and why they decided against it was they felt that, you know, it kind of set a precedence. We're doing one job, and this would be normal operating business for something. So we're a company to buy a machine to, you know, make money on. This is normal operating costs, and they're only going to bring one more job into the community. So, and there was also mention of, you know, the city has helped them in the past with abatements and helped them with the road to their buildings. And, you know, so through the notes there, they had some, you know, some legs to stand on as to why they decided against it.
Thank you, Sean. So in the projected savings was $8,800, correct?
For the 5-year, correct.
For the 5, and for the 3 was 50?
6,000.
and some, I can't remember.
Right
I
at
have to look in my
6.
notes to get the exact amount.
I mean, there's no doubt Overton's been a good partner for the city for a long time, since you've been to this, in the city. I don't think there's any question.
Scott, are you watching the legislators real close, since we've been talking about this?
Yeah. So, you know, how that's gonna go, yeah, we don't really know, but, you know, it's a little eye-opening here, hearing some of the comments you've made.
As it stands now, the state of Indiana, when the personal property gets down to a 30% depreciation value, it remains at that number. One of the proposals that the state has is to take that away, and it would go all the way down. So we would lose every year from then on out. In addition, they're also talking about doing a one-year moratorium on not having any business personal property tax.
Every signal is, something is going to be done. Every signal. This is priority one, so.
And the total, Mr. Austin, the total for a 3-year savings would be $6,293.62. The EDC is required, we have 5 statutory requirements from that the state and the state code has, and they have to find the findings that they meet all 5 of those criteria in order to give the abatement. So essentially what they did was the 5th requirement is that the totality of the abatement justifies, or the totality of the investment and the number of jobs justifies the abatement. And that is the one that they felt they just could not find in finding. They found all of the other 4 in findings and agreed with them. We're very supportive of Overton. It was just that last one that they really struggled with.
Lynn, what about the final ERA designation that she's describing? What's your thoughts on that?
I was not at the meeting of the Executive
recognize
Council.
that.
But yeah, you have to determine in your mind if you think they meet that criteria. The 5 members of because you must make that finding
Sure.
in order to grant tax abatement. The statute says that. You have to find A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
And the EDC, based upon the presentation, did not think that finding was met. You have the discretion to adopt that recommendation or to make a different determination. I don't know that I'm answering your question, but that's why, quite frankly, there are 2 resolutions drafted. Dana was kind enough to reach out and we talked through it, not knowing what you would do. We've got both here for you. So if you believe that 5th finding does exist, then you can deny not follow the EDC recommendation and grant it, or if you feel that the EDC was correct with their finding, then you agree with their recommendation and deny the abatement.
Scott, what is the total employees you have in Franklin?
Right now, we're sitting at 37, and we're actively seeking about 3 more, so we should be at 40 here shortly. I will say that I think you're going to see more and more companies can't find the employees right now anyway, okay, especially skilled workers. So we're having to go out and buy more expensive equipment that can do more to use our skilled people to do more work, and then maybe what doesn't take those skilled people, we farm out to other businesses. So just because we're not adding people to staff doesn't mean that we're not spreading work around the Franklin community, other facilities. And I think it's going to get very difficult to find high-paying, skilled jobs. You know, we have to spend this money one way or another, but that $6,000 does make a difference to us because we can bump up our benefits with it, whether it's paying for a dental plan, whether it's giving health holidays, whatever we can do to our employees to make us more competitive to try to get those people into work. So, you know, it's kind of some give and take here. It's hard enough to find people out there already. So we got to give them good equipment to work with. We got to give them good benefits.
One of the plans you did have at one time, I know in conversation we had, don't you help with education with some of your employees?
We do. We have tuition reimbursement programs. We actually pay if we can get high school seniors that want to attend VU, Ivy Tech, or Lincoln Tech, we will offer up to full tuition payment for them. So they can go to school 100% debt-free, come to work for us. We also have now apprenticeship programs. 4 different apprenticeship programs are registered with the state. We work with C9, C4, Area 31, as well as Walker Career Center on all their advisory boards, trying to bring in students from there that can, work summers and intern for us, all in hopes of trying to find good people that we can then pay on to send to VU's program or Ivy Tech's program for precision machining.
So I guess I just want to say, again, we recommended the 3. And the reason we sat down and talk about tax abatements, where does this fit in? 3, 5, 10, 7, where are we at? I felt like it was a 3 with the 1 employee. I still feel that way, knowing the company and knowing that I know there's plans to still grow the company down the road as long as you can keep finding people. So we all know how that hard is. We hear it every day. But I am in favor of the 3. However, again, I do respect the EDC's decision. If that's the way they see it, I respect that. That's just where I'm at, and I'm going to respect the decision that the council makes and whatever you think. So, but I do know we got a good company, and yes, I see the point of setting a precedent. But also, there's in the past, there's companies that's bought equipment that come in and just got abatements on equipment, not counting employees that was tied to it. We just, you hear somebody say, well, I bought $500,000 worth of equipment, they come and ask for an abatement, I think we've passed that on before and done that, so.
That's rare, Mayor, but it has happened.
Right.
It has.
So I've said enough.
And I just would like to thank the EDC and Dana, because they have been helpful in previous years and everything else, and thank you for the council for letting us speak our part, so appreciate it.
Well, I spent almost 2 decades on the EDC, and I know the men and women on there taking that job very seriously, and it's reviewed and looked at every year, specifically the abatements that you currently have on the books, sir, to make sure you're fulfilling your requirements. So I would lean towards the EDC's decision. If it's 3 employees, it's a no-brainer. 1, again, I think the 3-year, it could go either way. We're not talking $100,000 here. It's $6,000.
Okay, so is that a motion, Mr. Ross? Does anybody else have anything to say?
See if someone else has a motion. Crickets. I don't know how many times in the city we've denied a request. Does anyone? Dana, Krista?
I don't think so, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you have, the EDC has not.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's the
meant.
first time
I'm
they've
talking
ever-
about
Correct, the
economic
EDC has
development,
not,
the
but the
Economic Development
council
Commission.
has,
Yeah,
yes.
the council has denied them.
Right.
When they supported them. I don't know that the EDC, in my anecdotal knowledge, has ever recommended a denial.
Krista, I don't think I've ever,
Usually it's just a negotiation of the length or the fee, those kinds of things.
right. So the economic development impact fee was 5%. What's that come out to?
Yes. You're gonna make me do math. It would be 5% of the savings for the 3 years or the 5 years, depending on what it would be.
10% would be 660, so it's gonna be
half of
330.
that. Thank you.
Lawyers can divide things by 3. We could do thirds.
I know, right? This one's a tough one. I'm just gonna be honest.
They're all tough.
I mean, it is. I mean, we've got a great company here who's been in Franklin for so long, and in the economy we're dealing with and the issues that small companies are having, gosh. Yeah, You know, but again, you know, what Kenny said about the EDC, they're the ones who looked at this, and so I am just really torn.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I wasn't able to make it to the meeting, and just knowing those guys and knowing that, you know, I know that they dug into it. It's kind of, it's hard to not go with what they will go with their judgment. I mean, I can read through their statements, read through what's in, but I know they've dug into it more than I have. So it's hard for me to not take their recommendation. And even though I know they're a great company, they're a small business in Franklin, it's you know, there was some precedence there as to why that they said no.
Irene?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of torn too. I don't know. You know, you want to stick with your small companies, but I don't understand why they flew up the flag like they did. Just torn.
I'm okay with the 3 year, definitely not 5. So I'm just going to throw a motion out because we've got to get this thing moving. So I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatement for a period of 3 years.
And your motion would be that you find that the economic benefit does, the investment, what's my statute?
The totality of the investment
supports-
justifies the abatement.
Correct, thank you.
That's the terminology.
Thank you, Dana.
Yes,
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
3 years.
5% economic.
With a 5%.
5% economic development fee, or impact fee, yeah.
Okay. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Rhodes, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Austin?
Alphabetical order's rough, isn't it?
You start from the rear one time.
You need to change your name.
You know, after 20 years on EDC, I've never voted against them. But we know that Overton is a good company. I'm surprised they're here for the abatement, but I'll vote for it.
So your motion, you're in aye.
Aye.
Aye, is what he said.
Ms. McGinnis?
Aye.
Ms. Nally?
Aye.
Mr. Prime?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So, Ms. Gray?
Okay, we'll go on to the next item. Request to declare stale dated checks canceled. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes.
Yes, sir. This is
I'm coming for your abatement. I spent $100,000 on my computers.
IC code that gives us
Why did I
the
get
right
abatement?
Hey,
$100,000 on computers.
you should apply for it. You got one employee, don't you? Two?
I didn't get any PPP money.
You should.
Crazy.
And you need a motion on that, correct, Jane? Yes.
And again, I'll save my personal property tax.
Was there a resolution number or something? Move to approve the
Stuff.
stale checks.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next item. Request approval of encumbrances carried over to 2022. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes.
Yes, sir, and this is also housekeeping that we do every year, be able to do encumbrances. I don't know if the new people on the council realize that you can carry money over from year to year if you have a contract or already a bill, an invoice, bill settled. And so all of these that we are carrying over are ones that the money basically has already been spent. Or will be spent in some.
And we don't need a motion on that? This is information only, correct? Okay. Is there any questions about the encumbrances?
You didn't, don't you ask for approval?
Just for approval, right.
Yeah, I think you do need a, sir, I'm sorry, I was doing two things. I think you need a motion to approve the request to encumber.
Like we did for the check.
Correct,
Okay, I'll
correct.
apologize.
No, no,
Okay.
I was listening out of two different things.
Okay, is there any other questions on the encumbrances? It's contracts, or, we have to have contracts or billings in hand to be able to encumber it. We can't encumber it on saying, we're gonna build this street. We have to have that contract, so. So with that being said, I guess.
Mayor,
we
move
need-
to approve.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go to other business, which is just a information only from Ms. Gray on federal vaccine policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize to you in advance because you've heard this once. I will try to be brief, but I do know that you get asked by your constituents about things that appear at the national level. So this is the update. Originally, there were two mandates that were given by the federal agencies within the federal government. The first one was the mandate by the Health and Hospital Services Organization at the federal level that required healthcare workers, nursing home facilities, and medical providers to either mandate vaccinations for all of their employees or have a testing policy in place. There was also a parallel order by OSHA that came out at the federal level that required private employers of 100 employees or more to also do the same thing. Those two mandates made their way up through the federal court system, and it arrived at the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago. I listened to the oral argument, quite fascinating, quite frankly, before the United States Supreme Court on a Friday, and they issued their decision the following week. Essentially, their decision was that the mandate by Health Hospital Services, the Medicare provision, was approved and affirmed in a 5-4 decision. The theory was because they are involved in health care, that was within the purview of Health and Hospital Services. However, they reversed the mandate from OSHA requiring employees with 100 or more employees to have a mandate in place. The theory was, and that was a 6-3 vote, the theory was that OSHA had the power to regulate workplace safety, but the virus and these types of things were really more in the area of public health emergencies, and that was beyond OSHA's purview. So as a result, the Supreme Court struck that down. There had been discussions before that the city should have a policy in place by January, and enforcement was going to occur in February. We did not go down that path waiting for this decision. Didn't make sense to create a lot of angst because there were many, many, many unanswered questions. There were religious exemptions, there were medical exemptions, there were questions, and quite frankly, employers didn't know how to address all those issues. And rather than have a problem, we waited to see, and that's the decision from the federal court. So the Indiana State Legislature is considering, and I rather expect it to pass, a statute that does exactly the opposite, that prohibits employers from adopting a mandate, and that is working its way through the state legislature. I know the Daily Journal has reached out and said, was the city going to consider a policy in light of because you could voluntarily do it, and quite frankly, my response from a legal standpoint is it probably doesn't make sense, again, to go down that route, because I expect that the legislature is going to have some say in that. So while we might encourage the health for all our employees, I think the mandate discussion is probably moot at this point going forward. So that's my report to you.
Okay, thank you. So before I start the council comments, I had some comments at the Board of Works meeting, and I'm going to say those same comments again. I just want to make people aware, out by McDonald's, the East Side Redevelopment Commission has spent millions of dollars trying to make that something special. And the landowners who have all the legal right, it's my understanding, are talking about putting a Caliber body shop, which is gonna look like a junkyard. And I just wanna make sure that the council's aware. I'm not in favor of it, and hopefully that the council could reach out to the people that own the property and see if there's a discussion about the best use for that land. So that's, I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of the situation there. So with that being said, Josh, do you have anything for council comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Ann?
Just real quick, Rosie, you said that, I know the state of the city has been rescheduled. Did you give a date on the reschedule, or is it just still? March 10th, thank you. You said that yesterday, and I still couldn't remember the date, so thank you. Thank you. You never know. Okay, thank you.
I have high hopes.
Yeah, right?
Mayor, back to, out by McDonald's, I mean, wasn't an apartment, condominium apartment, thing proposed for that location? And was turned down by the redevelopment commission?
No.
Or the-
No.
No, quite out.
No?
They're really, they've never officially proposed that. They've talked about that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so,
All right,
yeah, that's where that's at. They haven't proposed
okay.
it.
Jeff, I want to say thank you. You've been amazing, and you continue to be amazing, and I really appreciate your help. You've done a lot for the city, and appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Anything else, Ken?
That's it. Thank you.
Taylor?
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Yukon?
I love Disney World.
All right, well, thank you all tonight. With that being said, Jane, do you have anything to add?
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.